So, you're playing Abyssinia, a 4-dot regional in Central Africa with a VSCC of 32 dots. You start with one fleet and three armies, and in the first year, Abyssinia can usually contest these five neutrals: Aden, Warsangali, Azandi, Darfur, and Hawara. Out of these five neutrals, the Ottomans may contest you over Hawara, Ajaran for Warsangali, and either Congo or Ajaran, potentially for Azande. In most games, you'll want to try and press your way into 4 out of 5 of these neutrals, so you can double, giving you the best setup and flexibility for O2. Among other contested dots, you'll have to consider how much you demand certain concessions, and how you stay your neighbours away from these neutrals with either the carrot or the stick. In each case, you may have to argue how you having the dot is better for your long-term cooperation, and point out potential other avenues of expansion for your neighbours to look in. Here are a few of the most common Abyssinia openings, depending on which neutral you're opening for. But who are your neighbours? And in a game with 25 people, how should you be dividing your time? Your most important neighbours are those closest to you, namely the Ottomans, Ajaran, and Congo. So, these are the players that you should focus most of your press efforts on. And if you only have time to check in with so many people in a phase, these should be your first port of call. Early game, building relationships is important, and none more so than the players who you'll be directly interacting with in the early stages of the game. Building that rapport and discussing dot splits and future plans is all the better going to set you up to continue growing in O2. After these come your neighbours, chiefly the Safavids, Portugal, and the Dutch. What these powers do is going to have a direct impact on your game. Whether you want them hitting your mutual neighbours so you can make easier gains and coordinating attacks, or just info sharing so you can get a better control and sense of the board. These are your potential neighbours after your immediate neighbours are dead, so it's good to establish a relationship with them early. After that, pressing colonials is always useful, as they have a better sense of the board, but this can be your optional press if you're trying to cross board, and if you have some extra time, you never know who's going to make it into the endgame and when those relationships are going to be useful. Early game, your biggest point of contention is going to be the Red Sea. The usual option is to DMZ it in O1, so both you and the Ottomans can walk into your neutral dots, friendly and unopposed. Managing this border and point of friction later into the game, if you do decide to ally Ottomans or stab over it, is always going to be important, whether that be through safety bounties or complete DMZs. Abyssinia has an option for anti-Ottomans 01, which can be good if you have support and looking for a dead Ottomans fast, so you can focus on other things, but you also have to be careful to not leave yourself overexposed to Congo or Ajaran to the south, or earn yourself lots of anti-Ottoman builds in the first winter. Hitting into Arabia is also hard with how the tiles are laid out. So you'll often find that when hitting Ottomans, your real goal is going to be to take the easy dots in Cairo, Mecca, Sana'a, and maybe Tripoli with as minimum investment as you can, which is usually going to mean stabbing for some sort of Sorkin and Red Sea walk as soon as O2, trying to avoid a tactic slog where all your units are getting weighed down on a border that you don't want. In Central Africa, Congo, Ajaran, and Abyssinia are all in a triangle, which means unless you're playing a rare African triple, one of you is going to draw the short end of the stick with its alliances. It's important to make sure that isn't you. Whichever way you decide to swing, either are viable. Try to get a good stab on a phase where they aren't expecting it and you can make progress. Abyssinia usually needs to play in a concentrated direction early to have a chance to contend wins in games. This is because they have the lowest amount of dots within 4 moves compared to any other power. This usually lends itself well to more stable alliances with one of their neighbours into the mid-game, before finding one last stab to get your final dots, as this allows you to really push in one direction away from your ally. The neat thing is that all alliances with Abyssinia's neighbours are viable, and there's been good examples of alliance play wins, whether it's with the Ottomans, Ajaran or Congo. Some examples being the strong Abyssinia Ottomans in B1.3J, the Abyss Aju in B1.4Z, and Abyssinia Congo being a nice option for an Indian Ocean game if you want to get some cores on the east coast. So it's really about your social read and your preference on the layer/power based on how you think they'll play and whether they'll be a good ally. While this may be the most popular strategy, it's by no means the only way to play the power. Take Bu1.4's Abyssinia, who played a very stab-heavy game to make their way top board into the win. The single most important thing on Abyssinia is this tempo, which you need to stay high for you to have any shot at contesting a win versus much faster growing colonials. For this reason, cores are also really strong on Abyssinia. On average, Abyssinia has to get further away from their starting home dots to find their VSCC, so you are always going to get more value out of coring closer to the front line. So consider trying to get some cores off early to really help your tempo and mobilization into the mid-late game. Or who knows, you might end up in India with some East Coast cores. Keeping a good balance of armies and fleets is also going to be really helpful as ever for you on Abyssinia. At least 2 fleets to defend your border from weak spots like Gulf of Tidora and Red Sea, as well as unlocking some of those avenues of growth which are so hard to come by. If you want to get involved and check out Imperial Diplomacy for yourself, the link to the Discord is in the description. Thanks for watching.